Folks. So my name is Féilim Mac An Iomaire. I'd like to kick off by thanking the Farmers Journal for having me along today. As you all know, I'm here to talk about innovative approaches to job hunting, and I'm going to do so by telling you a bit about my own story and how I took an unconventional route to getting a job when I hit a dead end to more traditional means. So to kick off our story, we start way back in 2006. I had just graduated from university. Jobs were plentiful, and I was itching to get involved in the workforce. I ended up taking the first job that came my way, which was a sales role, which eventually led me to sell insurance. This involved me staring at a screen that looked like Airtel for about 9 hours a day, but without the benefit of getting football results. So something similar to like this. This isn't the program. It's been seared from my brain, the name of it, so I couldn't actually find a decent screenshot of it. So I got something that looked kind of like it. Now, as grateful as I was to have a job, it genuinely wasn't something that I was really passionate about. And with the economy kind of going to the wall a bit, I decided it was time to hightail it over to Oz along with the rest of the Paddies. And I made myself a promise when I did that, never again to work a day in my life in a job that I genuinely didn't enjoy. Once there, I was really lucky. I landed a great gig as an entertainment coordinator for the largest hostel in Sydney. What this involved was me organizing parties, tours, and events for all the backpackers. So kind of think maybe Van Wilder, but with a higher BMI index and an Irish accent. Or Marty Morrissey in a strings vest, as a few people have told me. Now, what I found working in this role is that I really enjoyed using the creative side of myself. And going forward, I felt it was something that I wanted to use in a professional capacity. But as much as I loved Australia, after my year was up, there really is no place like home. So after my year is up, I decided to come back to Ireland. Now, once I came back to Ireland, I did everything that you'd expect of someone who's really keen to get back into the workforce. I read all the books I could on job hunting. I spent hours searching the internet to find how to put together the CV. I applied to a load of jobs, went to a load of recruiters, looked at absolutely loads of Jeremy Kyle, and got really good at Countdown. Now, as much as my countdown skills were progressing, the same really couldn't have been said for my job prospects. So after a few fruitless months of job hunting, I felt the only way that I was going to get a job was by thinking outside the box. And what I said to myself, why don't you showcase your skills rather than tell people about them? So I thought about it for a few days, and my Eureka moment came while I was giving my pal a lift in my mother's Skoda Fabia estate. I hadn't seen my friend in a while. I was picking him up from the airport, and of course, as anyone knows who's been out of work for a while, the first thing anyone asks you is, how's the job hunting going? Which is always out of niceness, but it just jars with you because you're sick of bloody answering it. And I kind of jokingly said to him, I said, geez, you know what? The best thing I could probably do at this stage is to put up a billboard. And now, I don't know if there are any Skoda Fabia owners out there, but it's not. If any Skoda Fabia owner will tell you that it's not often magic moments happen inside them. So I kind of knew I was onto something special. So what I decided to, so I was determined to see it through, and I started hatching a plan together. That actually isn't my mother's Skoda Fabia estate. I mean, no one takes a photo of their Skoda Fabia. It's probably the opposite of an Impreza. That's a stock image I just got off the internet. Now, as much as I'm a proud Gaeilgeoir, and I'm really proud of my Animas Gaeilge, I'm the first to admit that the name Féilim Mac An Iomaire doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. So I decided to follow a number of Irishmen, such as Bono, The Edge, that gobshite off the Sunday Game, and to give myself an alias. Now, it needed to be clear that I was absolutely desperate for work and that I was Irish, but the name Brian McFadden was already taken, so I decided to go with Jobless Paddy. Now, at the time, back in 2011, the economy was the economy was tanking, and the popularity of Jedward was on the rise. So emigration was at an all-time high. Now, I wanted to create a concept that would really reflect my unwillingness to join the hordes that had already that had already left the country. And I kind of came up with this concept very quickly of myself looking out above the horizon at landmarks in traditional routes that Irish people would go to. And lucky enough, I mean, when people are great, and a friend of a friend who's a designer, Michelle Cunningham from Michelle Design, based out there in Maynooth, she helped me put the design work together. The Spittle Photography Club got me the high-resolution photo that I needed to put it together. And then I got an Indonesian chap off a freelance website to make the illustrations for me. Now, it took about 20 phone calls, but eventually I finally managed to convince the owners of the billboard to let me put it up, because I think they thought I was a bit mental, which is understandable, really. Now, I had a few weeks to prepare before the actual billboard went off, so I used this time to get myself a bit more au fait with social media, and that I knew it was going to be a key medium for me to push my message out there to the general public, and also to gain cut through in the media. And in truth, the only thing I'd really used social media for before is to put photos up of nights out and to share cat videos. So it was good to have that little buffer for a bit of research. Now, D-Day landed on back in 2011, and I can honestly say I was absolutely bricking it. I was worried whether I was going to be completely misinterpreted and seen as very self-important and stuff like that. I was worried that it wouldn't catch fire and it wouldn't come to the attention of the public, and more importantly, employers. And it genuinely turns out that I really, really, really needn't have worried. Within about 3 hours of it going up, I had already done an interview with the journal.ie. It was on broadsheet. I'd appeared on 2FM. And then I got a phone call from Will Goodbuddy in the RTE News, and I ended up on all their news bulletins. Now, when I tell people that I really didn't expect it to go so crazy so early, they never believe me. But like, I always point to this photo as evidence. I mean, look at the bloody state of me. I was sleeping on a friend's couch. I hadn't showered in a couple of days. I hadn't shaved in a couple of days. So, like, if you need any proof, I mean, that photo definitely hasn't found its way onto my Tinder profile. I can tell you that much. And then, actually, the day after, things really took off. I got a phone call from the Associated Press and from Reuters. Both rang the story, and it just went absolutely international. It was everywhere, and for a couple of days I was doing about 40 interviews for about 3 days afterwards. It got the kind of media attention that's normally reserved for Kim Kardashian's ass or something like that. And it ended up absolutely everywhere. There's just a few bits there. I popped up in a few. I was the only English alphabet words in those articles on a few of those, so that will tell you how widespread it went. And I suppose the great thing was the reaction from the public was absolutely brilliant. I mean, I just couldn't have asked for so many of the nice things that were said to me. So there's just a few examples. Someone give that man a job. I would if I could. That was on the journal. Féilim, just had to send you a message to say well done for using your brain and for trying to avoid leaving Ireland. I wish I could offer you a job, but I can't. Well done, Brian Kennedy, the singer fella. That was an email I got from him, which I still laugh when I see that. It's a really nice gesture from him. He's just been on 2FM. Excellent idea if you ask me. And it sounded from his interview that he's already been abroad and has returned to settle, but is finding it difficult to gain employment. Fair play, Paddy. And that was on broadsheet.ie. And then this from my mother. I'm proud of you, Féimi. I'm now 30 years old. I have a pension. I went to IKEA to buy a lamp, but my mother still calls me Féimi. But as well and good as it is for me to stand up here and tell you all the great things that were said about me, it's actually far more entertaining to tell you some of the haters that I got. So here we go. Prime example of social media douchebaggery, said some guy on broadsheet. Wanker, said someone on Twitter. He would have been better off putting that money into Google AdWords than a billboard, said someone on journal.ie. Well, would you look at if it isn't the asshole with the placard off the television? That was my mate's dad. I like to think that he said that with his tongue in his cheek, but I'm not too sure if he did. Yeah, another person who adds absolutely zero value to the country, but is lauded as the best example of entrepreneurial route. This country really needs people who make stuff rather than another marketing parasite that pushes their own money about. Parasite. What makes you so special, you fake tan-wearing gobshite? F off back to Oz. There's a typo in that, and there was no way I was going to correct it. So I just said I'd leave that up. Now, in fairness, most of this, I've got thick skin and I can take this on the chin, but I found that fake tan comment particularly cutting. You know, while I have you all, I'd just like to say I've never, ever worn fake tan. I've never been on a sunbed in my life. I'm fully aware I do look like a plump Jersey Shore cast member from time to time, but genuinely, you know, I've got natural sallow skin, and I think if anyone can appreciate a farmer's tan, it's you guys. But most importantly, the reaction from employers was amazing. I proved more popular than Niall Horan and Coppers, and I did about 70 job interviews with about 33 different companies in the space of a month. It was absolutely hectic, and I had about 20 firm offers afterwards, and I ended up picking Paddy Power. So here I am on my first day at work at Paddy Power. I often get asked why it was that I chose Paddy Power. I suppose reason number one, I went in there and I met Ken Robertson, who's still my boss today. He's head of brand engagement in Paddy Power, and Paddy Power himself. I was always a huge fan of the brand, and just to have them tell me all the stories behind it and all the anecdotes of the stunts, you know, I was absolutely hooked and enthralled after listening to them. Secondly, there were two big things I wanted in a job from this process, and that was I wanted a job that I would really, really, really enjoy, and secondly, that I would learn absolutely loads from. And having met Ken and Paddy, I thought there were two people that I could really learn off, and that's proved to be absolutely true. And thirdly, I can qualify mucking about as Twitter as work. And I also get to wear runners to work, which is great. I mean, I just came from the office and I look like an aging skateboarder. You know, it's great crack altogether. So to sum it all up, it's absolutely massive risk, I suppose, to take every penny that I have and to put it into something like this. But it's something that I'm really, really glad that I have done. If you're to take anything out, I suppose, from my story, it's that the convention, you know, there are ways beyond the conventional method to get to a goal. The one thing we all do, we all get the same advice when we're job hunting. It's always a very, very competitive environment, and it's very difficult to stand out if you're all going to do the same thing. So maybe try to zig when others zag, and find your own path. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Féilim Mac An Iomaire. If you have any questions, more than happy to answer them.
Hi Féilim, I'm Mary. I write for Country Living, so we've spoken on the phone. But Féilim, yes. Tell me, what's it like working for Paddy Power? I know that's a very broad question, but I mean, it's quite the controversial company with some very interesting ad campaigns. What's it like working inside an organisation like that?
Yeah, it's great, I suppose. I suppose the best thing about Paddy Power is that no 2 days are the same. I mean, you know, you come in one day and you're trying to hijack the news agenda in terms of on completely different stuff. So, you know, yesterday, say, I was busy getting odds on Boys Life. That's the combination of Westlife and Boyzone and how they're going to do. Also today, you know, we're planning for stunts for Cheltenham. No 2 days are the same because we kind of move with the news agenda the whole time. So whatever's big news at the time, that's what you're involved in, that's what you're working in. So it's a bit of a madhouse. Some of the best stuff we actually don't get to do. But no, it's a great place to work. It really, really is.
Hi, Féilim. Yeah, that's a very wonderful presentation and great energy. So did you like bypass all the CVs and cover letter stuff and go? Did Paddy Power find you in the end, or did you find Paddy Power?
Well, they came to me after this, but I don't think there's any way of bypassing the CVs or the cover letters. You know, the first thing it was when a company got in touch with me was I was referred to their HR department, and I did have to go through the traditional routes. Luckily, I didn't just bank on the billboard being the CV, so I did have a few things prepared that I could fire out to them. But
so, given the fact that this was such a success, if people come to you, have you got some other clever ideas about how to stand out?
I've worked with a few friends on different stuff. I mean, I always think CV's the most key thing. I mean, if you have a friend who's good at graphic designing or anything like that, that can spruce it up just to make it stand out. I mean, one of the reasons that I went and I did something like this was I read in the book, I think it's What Color Is Your Parachute, which a lot of you will be familiar with, that a good recruiter will take about 12 seconds to dismiss a CV, and that frightened the life out of me. So if you want to if you want to stand out, I do think putting a bit of color, putting a bit of splash, putting your own spin on a CV, then that's certainly a way you can do it.
I mean, it is interesting because I think what people are being told a lot today is that it's networking. It's all about networking and LinkedIn and those keywords that you spoke about.
Yeah.
What do you think about networking? I mean, talking, getting back out there and speaking to people again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, events like this are great. I mean, it's a lot easier to pick up a phone to someone once you know them. I mean, I suppose I work in PR now, and networking is a huge thing in that thing. I mean, in my world, I make a point of meeting at least 2 journalists a week, and it just makes your life a hell of a lot easier if you do have a strong network built, particularly in the industry that you're looking to work in.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again.
Hi, Féilim, it's me again. When you go to parties, that's really interesting. When you go to parties and you're being introduced to people, are you introduced as the billboard guy, or how soon does it come up in conversation? Is this campaign actually going to haunt you forever?
It's beginning to less and less, weirdly enough. I genuinely had 15 minutes of fame once it happened. I remember the weekend after I accepted the Paddy Power job, I was on a stag weekend in Westport, and there were people getting selfies with me in the place. And you kind of think that it's never going to end, but then the following weekend I was in Coppers, and not one person asked me a thing. So people do forget very quickly, which is probably a good thing, but it does crop up from time to time. Most people have forgotten it by now, thankfully, but I still think, no, I don't think I'll shake it off anytime soon.